name is Maya B, and as you can tell by the title, I did not pass my first semester of medical school. I actually wrote down how I wanted to kind of tackle everything so that it made sense. I guess we can just start by how I got to medical school. I got accepted into my school in July, actually, the first week of July. So I had about a month to figure out where I was gonna live and pack my room in my hometown and move to Arkansas. So that all happened, and at the time I was still working as a scribe, so I was, putting in my final notice for that job, and then, also trying to pack and get everything in order for the move to Arkansas. So I moved August, I want to say the first week of August, I moved to Arkansas, and I vlogged that little journey. And then when I finally got to Arkansas, I had about 2 days before it was orientation week, and right after orientation week it was white coat ceremony, and then after the white coat ceremony, which was Friday, classes started. I'm going to explain how my school does it, like the setup of what the fall semester looked like. So we have foundations of medicine, and under that discipline is osteopathic medical knowledge and osteopathic clinical skills. So osteopathic medical knowledge, or OMK, is the scientific and clinical disciplines, and then the osteopathic clinical skills, it was OMM lab, DPR, doctor-patient relations, and anatomy lab. And our classes were asynchronous, so we had recordings that we would watch for our lectures, and that's kind of how we learned, based off of, that's how we would get our lectures. Our lectures were pre-recorded lectures, and we would watch those, and the only time we went into class was for OMM lab, DPR, and anatomy lab. And those were the only times that we actually went in, were on campus in person for those specific labs. In terms of how our tests were set up, there's 3 comprehensive exams, so there's 3 in the fall semester, and then we have 5 pre-comps, which consist of 2 weeks of lecture material. We would have 1 week of lectures, another week of lectures, and then that Monday you would have the pre-comp on those previous 2 weeks of lecture material, and then you would do it again, and the 5th week was still lecture material, and then after that it would be our comprehensive exams. So during our comprehensive exams, you would have about a week before the actual comp itself, and during that time you would also have clinical skills assessments, and you would also have OMM practicals. Anatomy practicals were actually written, and there would be questions, multiple choice questions, but there will also be free response questions where they would show you a cadaver picture, and you would have to identify what the image was showing. That's how it is. That's how the whole fall semester is and what it consists of. So for me, I was not prepared for medical school, in all honesty. I had 2 gap years, so I was excited to go to medical school, but it was just, I was not prepared for how intense it was. Like, the drinking from a fire hose analogy is true. The drinking from a fire hose analogy is very true. And what I wish I would have known before was how to study. I did not know how to study at all, so I was kind of just I was doing what I did in undergrad, which was just trying to memorize everything. And with all the material that you get in medical school, you're not just memorizing is not going to be conducive to your success. And that's kind of where I dropped the ball in that area, learning how to study per se. So in terms of anatomy lab, OMM lab, and DPR, I passed that. those were like, you know, our osteopathic clinical skills labs and stuff like that. I was fine in that area. I kind of fell short in the osteopathic medical knowledge portion, which is like, you know, the scientific and the clinical aspects of medicine. I did not know how to study that material. So like, you know, biochemistry, pathology, pharmacology, I just did not know how to study any of that. I know how to study for those kinds of things. Like anatomy lab, it was, you know, looking at pictures, and I would do Anki and boot camp, utilize those resources, and they were very helpful, but I never could figure out how to study specifically for like biochemistry, pathology, all that. So I wish I would know how to study for that. So the very first comp, I did not pass. I was like a point from passing, but I did not pass. So you have to have a 70% to pass. Backing up, the comps are worth 90% of your grade, and then the pre-comps are worth 10% of your full grade, and you need a 70% or above to pass everything. So OMM lab, anatomy lab, DPR, and OMK, like you needed a 70% to pass each of those. And the first comp, I got a 69. And I never like passed any of my pre-comps. Like the pre-comps are kind of to gauge where you are, and I just never passed any of those. Like they were only worth 10% of your grade, so it didn't hurt as much, but it just showed, like saying that out loud, that I never passed any of the pre-comps just kind of showed that I was definitely like, I didn't know how to study. I came close sometimes, and I knew some of the material, but it just wasn't enough to pass. I went to our academic specialist, spoke to them, and tried to figure out how, like, where do I go from here? We still have 2 comps left. I need to figure it out pretty much. So along came comp 2, and that was a disaster. It was so much in block 2 that it was just so much genetics. It was just so many different courses that were included in block 2. Genetics, physiology is awful, it's the worst. Physiology, pathology, microbiology, immunology. It was like just all of those in one block. So it was just a lot going on, and like I said, I didn't know how to study, so I didn't know how to tackle any of the lectures. I didn't know how to utilize the session objectives. So I just was in the wind. I don't even know what I was doing. So comp 2 came, failed comp 2, was worse than comp 1. And it's known like to be the hardest comp of first year, the second comp. So I was prepared for it to be hard, but not really. So that happened, and after I failed that one, I kind of was just like, okay, I have one more comp. I need like a 78 or something to pass the fall semester. After the second comp, I felt really defeated. I didn't know what to do. Like the first, like after that, like, you know, usually we get a day to kind of debrief ourselves, but then it's kind of like you need to start lectures, you know, for the next block. And I took a week to rot and feel like crap, which I probably shouldn't have done, because ultimately that threw me off for block 3. So block 3 was just pathology, physiology, and we had like a little bit of neuro, and then we also had some statistics kind of courses. Like I got a rough start to that block because I just felt like crap, and then ultimately I did not pass that block either. And being that I failed the fall semester, I was given the opportunity to enroll in the enrichment program, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But I just felt like crap after not passing, and it was just like I just did not know how to study. Everyone has different ways to study. In undergrad, that if you go to medical school, undergrad mentality is out the window. Like, that's not how you study. There's no such thing as, oh, I'm a visual learner, oh, I'm here. No, no. You need to, there's different kinds of study techniques to help you learn material. I didn't develop those study habits in that semester at all. So it was winter break, and then if you don't pass in the fall, you're able to enroll in the enrichment program. And the enrichment program is kind of like a less intense version of medical school. So we still did all the medical courses, but it was not as many. So for example, a week would be 16 lectures in the program, the DO program, but in the enrichment program, I think the max we got for lectures in a week was 12. So already it was kind of like not as intense. Say that to say it was just a lot going on in the fall semester, where it was just back-to-back lectures. Didn't know how to cope with having so many lectures, because it's like, just as soon as you feel like, oh, I'm about to master this, then it's like, okay, no, now you have 15 more lectures to review, 15 more subjects to look at. So yeah, that sucked. And another thing I wish I would have done was, because our lectures are asynchronous, you have to start lectures Wednesday or Thursday to be somewhat on schedule. So like I said, our white coat ceremony was that Friday. So our white coat ceremony, so that whole week was orientation week. So Monday through Thursday was orientation week, and then that Friday was the white coat ceremony. And we got to learn and about what is expected of us and how classes were going to work. So, finding out that it was asynchronous, they were like, because it was white coat ceremony, they were like, start lectures Friday, Saturday. However, like, it's like we're not even, we haven't even had our white coat ceremony, and we should have been starting lectures. It's crazy. Anyway, I wish I would have started lectures that Wednesday when we were still doing orientation, because your family is coming Friday for the white coat ceremony. You're going to spend time with your family, especially my family who drove from South Carolina to Arkansas. Like, I'm going to spend time with my family, and even my friends, my close friends, they drove to Arkansas for me, for my white coat ceremony. So obviously I'm going to spend time with them. They ended up leaving that next day. However, starting lectures Friday was just not even going to happen for me personally, because I'm with my family. So then I ended up starting them Saturday. However, the first week was 17 lectures. Now, they weren't all heavy hitting. They were introductory courses to OMM, and then I think we had one biochemistry lecture, which wasn't too bad, but it was still 17 lectures. And then the rest of them were like DPR lectures, doctor-patient relation lectures, and anatomy lectures. So we have anatomy lectures and anatomy lab. I do wish that I would have started earlier for that. However, I mean, I don't even know if that would have mattered, because I still didn't know how to study personally. I just really wish I had that arsenal of study tools and study tips, so that I could have been successful in the fall semester. Now I'm in the enrichment program the entire springtime. So in the enrichment program, there are 4 comps, and we had weekly quizzes. That was the difference between the DO program and the enrichment program. In the enrichment program, we had weekly quizzes to kind of evaluate where we were. Once again, the quizzes weren't worth a lot. It was mainly the comps were heavy. And we also had clinical inquiry on Thursdays, is when we would review case studies as a group. And we also had individual assignments that we had to do as well. So we would do like those clinical cases as a group and answer questions about those cases. And we would also make C-maps, concept maps. And as second years in CBL, we're going to have to make them anyway. So it was kind of a way for us to get like a head start on just how, like, what's expected of us for C-maps. Anyway, so that was one thing that we also did. So we had quizzes, clinical inquiry class, and we had classroom sessions, which consisted of us coming as a group with questions. You would be assigned a learning objective, and then you would have to make a board style question and present it to the class, and we would go through it and answer those questions and as a whole class, and kind of figure out how to tackle board style questions, and also helping us understand the lesson objectives and what's going to be like kind of expected of us. The opportunity to write our own questions and present the question to the class and help the class kind of get to the right answer and figure out like how we can eliminate this one, what makes this answer not correct for this specific question. That's kind of what the enrichment program was. It wasn't like, we still had to put work in, and we got lectures that we saw in the fall, but then we also got lectures that we'll see in the future, like in our spring semester or first year and the second year. So we were able to kind of see those lectures before we're actually like seeing them in the program, which was nice. So by the time it comes back around, we already have notes on it and flashcards or whatever. So yeah. So in the enrichment program, like I said, it was 4 comps and quizzes, and I ended up passing the enrichment program, which was fantastic. Love that. What I did differently was I took each session objective and I used ChatGPT to help me put key things underneath each session objective to help me understand what's expected of me. I will also use ChatGPT to explain certain concepts that didn't make a lot of sense to me, like explain it to me like I'm 5, you know, and it really helps when you kind of break things down. What I did in the enrichment program that I felt helped me be successful was that I, like I said, took the session objectives and actually tried to look into it and learn from them and see what I need to know. There's so much material, like if you utilize, that's what the session objectives are there for, to help you, you know, narrow down what you really need to know. So I did that, and I also made notes, and I made my own flashcards, especially for biochemistry. Like our whole first block was biochemistry, and used notes to like review things as well. I will say that actually helped me. Making my own notes is very time consuming, but at the end of the day, I'd rather spend time making the notes to make sure that I know what I'm talking about. Sit here and stress myself out like, oh my goodness, I need to do practice questions, but I don't even know what I'm talking about. Doesn't make any sense. Doing practice questions is not gonna like I feel like you definitely should do practice questions, but I feel like harping on practice questions, and you don't even know what any of the steps of glycolysis are, it's kind of pointless, because now you're just playing, you know? These questions are good. However, harping on them for me personally, and this is just my experience and what I'm like plan on doing, is like making sure I know what I'm talking about, you know? Teaching it to myself, acting as if I'm, you know, teaching it to someone, like knowing it to where I can tell you about it is you know what I've been doing. But I definitely do think Anki helped me in a sense that, well, now I will say I did utilize Anki in the fall semester, but I didn't know the material, so it was kind of pointless. It was like I'm just looking at things, I'm getting things wrong, thinking that, oh, if I just keep doing the card over again, I'm gonna memorize it miraculously. No, I needed to know the material. So that's something that definitely helped. I learned in the enrichment program, is that I need to know this material before I start doing flashcards and start doing practice questions. And I will say it can be easy to fall down a rabbit hole with that as well. So I try to, you know, put myself on a time limit with things, because like I said, this enrichment program, it wasn't as, I didn't get as many lectures as I will get when I'm back in the DO program. And it's like, I'm going to have to find a way to make that work all together. And another problem that I did have was that I was not getting up on time. you in medical school, you have to have like somewhat of a strict schedule in terms of like studying, because I can't be waking up at 10 o'clock and then trying to do everything I want to do, go to the gym, do this, do that, and then you find yourself 10 p.m. at night. It's 10 a.m. you wake up, it's 10 p.m. and you didn't do everything that you wanted to do. So that's another thing. Knowing the material and then doing Anki helped me. Now that I've passed the enrichment program, that's the thing. When you do the enrichment program, you have to repeat the year. So I have to repeat my whole first year. Granted, I only did the fall semester, so I'm just repeating the fall semester, and then after that I go back into, I just continue first year pretty much. So I am now the class of 2029 instead of 2028, which sucked at the time, but ultimately, like, you know, I trust in God, and I know that there's a reason for everything, and I know that doing this enrichment program was definitely a blessing, because it helped me kind of understand what works for me and what does not work for me, and what I need to do to be successful come the fall and the first year and spring, when I get the new material, and second year and all the boards and everything that needs to be done as a medical student. Just a lot. I definitely have quite a few friends that I made, and it sucks that I'm not going to be a part of that class, but like I said, God is, and God will continue to work for me and through me. And I know that ultimately this program was definitely a blessing, the enrichment program. I was able to do this program and, you know, move on. And I know some schools, like if you fail a block, like you're able to repeat, but our school just doesn't do that. Like there's no repeating any blocks. I'm on summer break right now, so I will return in the fall, and I have to do orientation again. I think I recorded one day in my life that I was gonna post, but after like not passing the first semester and then going towards, I really wanted to like kind of focus in and lock in, so I was just like, I'm not going to record, like I need to pass. And I mean, ultimately I didn't end up passing whatever the fall semester, but I just felt like there's no need to record. I definitely did want to record this because it's been a long time. Like, it's June. It's hard. Medical school's hard, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. You have to find what works for you. I didn't fail everything. It was just the scientific classes and the lectures and not knowing how to study, just that was kind of like definitely my downfall. But I literally passed everything else. I passed DPR, clinical skills assessments, all of those. I passed OMM lab, I passed anatomy lab, like, yeah. But I didn't know the material. Now I know what can work for me for my success. So this will be like my third time seeing some of these lectures, but I'm looking forward to the fall. I'm very excited, and I'm definitely going to get back into vlogging and trying to do that in a way that, you know, my school and studying is not being affected. And I know, like I said, because I've seen this material, the fall semester is not like, obviously I'm still gonna have to put work in, but because it's like my second time doing it, it's not gonna be as intense as it was the first go round. But I will say, once I go into PPOM in the spring, definitely gonna have to like lock back in even more, because all of this material is new. So that's it. The like button, subscribe, and leave a comment if you would like to. And thanks for watching.